have a guest. Jenny and I are friends, so if we dissolve into giggles, just ignore us. We'll get back to you. But Jenny went through my retirement coaching process, and we're going to talk about it just so all you listeners, can figure out how it works. And I want to introduce you to Jenny. Her name's Jennifer Greaney, and she's kind of semi-retired. Is that a fair statement, Jenny?
Ish, yes. I guess you could say, because I've moved out of the university job and I'm now half-time with that. So I'm retiring from that and moving into other things. So I don't know what you call that.
Okay. Ish is probably good. Okay.
Yeah.
Why did it sound like something you might like to do?
Well, actually, it was during at the end of a yoga class. You told the class about the work that you were doing, and I remember sitting there on the floor, coming to after a beautiful what's that thing called at the end of a yoga class? Yoga nidra. And you were talking about this, and I just went, I want to do that. So really, although you did sort of put it out there, I practically ran up to you after the class to say, I'd really like to try that. So I really wanted to do it because at the time, I guess really since I had turned 50, I'd had this feeling that I wasn't really living my life to my fullest potential, or to at least to be working towards realizing my passions. So I was probably about 57 at the time when we did this. I'm not quite sure, but I thought, I could sure use some help with, thinking about how I might do things differently from there on in. So it seemed like, I practically jumped at it. So, yeah, it really did kind of go, oh, yeah, that would be so helpful to me.
Okay. So where were you at that time? You were working full-time at the university, is that correct?
I was at that time, yes. Had a
Okay.
full-time permanent position in the law school as an associate lecturer in law.
And so you had a pretty secure, shall we say, position, but you were thinking about retirement in some form at that time?
Well, I was feeling like I was, not really enjoying the work as much as I had to begin with. It was in a situation where half of my time I got to teach a unit that I was passionate about, and the other half I had to teach stuff about English legal history and other things that didn't really inspire me. And believe me, I'm being very polite in the way I express this. So it was like
that.
understatement. Yeah, I'm not normally good at understatement, but so it was like I was thinking, if I could just do the bits that I like, this would be a good job. But I was really beginning to hate, actually, the putting such a lot of effort into something that just really wasn't of any interest to me. I just don't care about the kings and queens of England and their merry men. I just, so I was struggling with that, and it was just an awareness that, do I really want to live out my life doing stuff that I'm half-hearted about? And, I just also kind of come back to a part of my life that I hadn't really, connected with since I'd been in my 20s. and that was working with energies and crystals, and it was sort of, how am I going to, I don't know, I just, even trying to talk about it is indicative of how I was at the time. I was just, how am I going to do this? I really want to do this other stuff that's got a more spiritual, less in the material world um, aspect to it. But I was filled with doubts and worried about what people would think, and worried about security. And so I was sort of torn between being sensible and staying with a well-paid, secure job that had fantastic superannuation and lots of perks and so forth, and knowing it wasn't really making me very happy.
We know where you were, so where are you right now? What are you doing right now?
Um, I'm lying down in my bed really comfortably. I know that's not what you meant.
Well, I'm really glad though.
Thought, why not be relaxed?
Yes.
I'm actually in a place of transition right now. My partner and I decided that we were going to move from our inland place, a couple of 100 kilometres inland from Coffs Harbour, a place called Invergowrie near Armidale, and tried out living at the coast for a while. So we're currently in holiday accommodation. We have 2 weeks left. We have nowhere to live, and so we're kind of in that slightly scary limbo position, wondering what we're doing. And it's making it a little bit difficult to sort of, because I want to sort of set up a business here doing this energy work, but it's a little bit tricky at the moment because we don't even have a place to live. So it's a bit challenging, but I know that what I want to do is to be working with people in the healing area, working with people, working with their energies, helping them to reconnect with themselves and become aware of the powers that exist underneath the surface of the material world that we can tap into to, um, you know, be better connected with ourselves, clear our blocks that hold us back. So, yeah, that general type of work that I find so very rewarding. That's what I'm hoping to set up down here. But at the
Mhm.
moment, it's just that in between place of, um, yeah, I think limbo is a good way of describing it.
Okay. But you did set up that kind of something very similar to that in the place that you used to live. Isn't that right?
Yeah, yes, I did. I, I started off working from home and setting up a room in my house as a crystal healing space. And I started working with friends, and it was the most amazing thing, because once I started doing the work, I I just became so much happier. I loved working with people and working with the energies and working with the crystals, and it felt like I was more peaceful, I was more centered, I was more joyous. And so, okay, so it wasn't so financially secure, but it certainly made me feel a lot better about myself, and that I was doing something useful in the world, because working with a bunch of um, fairly privileged law students never really felt like what I was here on the earth to do. They were going to be fine without me. I want to work with people at a much deeper level, and people who will benefit from what my real gifts are. So, Yeah, that was where I started. Um,
Okay. How would you say that the work that we did with the coaching supported your need to change in your life at that point?
well, there were a number of things. I think one is that just to stop and turn your attention to the very question of what are you doing and what would you like to be doing, rather than just going along from day to day doing things because you've done them for a long time. So I think that there is something really valuable in making a conscious decision that you're going to stop and look at this part of your life. Then to be supported by someone who is skilled and has a good strategy to work through, well, that's even better, because then you're not just floundering around in the dark. You're actually doing it in a structured way and looking at being asked specific questions that are designed to get you more in touch with yourself and to reflect on things that you've done and things that are holding you back, and how you can better set your goals. So you had a whole lot of resources that um, helped me to look at this area of my life in a structured way that was extremely helpful, because I can tend to go around and around in my own head with things, and structure is not my strong suit. So that work that you did was highly structured and gave me a lot more clarity and purpose about how we went about it.
It's such a big change, and I don't think people often realize it until they're maybe right at the beginning of it or in the middle of it. And so I think structure is needed to help people really think about it without all the emotion that's attached to it, because there is a lot of emotion about changing your life. And so but I thought that you did really an excellent job, because what I've always loved is the juxtaposition of being a law in tutor and then being a crystal healer. I just love those two together. I think I think that I think that shows how diverse all of us are, and to go from one to the next, and to really know, because I obviously you've done really well with the crystal healing. You had your own business when you were at the other place, and now you're starting it up again. So it obviously is something that's very satisfying for you.
It
And
really is. Yeah, it really is. And there are aspects of the law that still appeal to me. The the particular way of thinking about things, the analysis, is a sort of very highly logical and analytical area, and I really enjoy that. I actually, I'm working at the moment with a private student. I'm tutoring privately, and I'm just absolutely loving, because this person's just beginning, and I'm loving introducing her to the way of thinking in law, and seeing her kind of click with it. And so I love all of that. But then, interestingly, when I do the healing, um, I actually have to put that side of my brain aside and open up to a completely different area of my brain or my being. That is the intuition. And the logical side is actually a hindrance in this work, because what the logical side will do is that when you're tuned into your intuition, it might, suggest that what you need to do now is to put your hand on the person's forehead, for example, and then sometimes, especially when I first started doing the crystal healing, that analytical voice would say, "Oh, that's just silly." and kind of have something to say about what the intuition was telling me. And now I've realised with the experience of working with a lot of people that I do need to listen to the intuition, and I need to tell that logical brain to just, stand aside, that this isn't the place for that kind of critical analysis. So it's fascinating to know that I can access those two aspects of myself, and that they're both, really opposite ends of the room. And yeah, and but that both of them are useful to me in the two areas of my work. It's an extraordinary sort of dichotomy, I guess you could say.
It is. It is. But it makes that so it makes you interesting. So
Thank you.
now um so really, if I can paraphrase, the the retirement coaching helped you find that purpose, that for that satisfaction in your life as you go forward. Obviously, parts of your life that we're doing before are also satisfying, but you've also really expanded this other area, this intuitive area, and found it to be equally satisfying.
That's right. And I think that there was a kind of encouragement that came from the work too. Um, just the idea that almost like being given permission, that it's okay to try something different. It's a good thing to try something different, because the the self reflection that was involved in the process that you put me through, sort of gave a better balance of, like, yes, of course we need to have some kind of financial security, or it's better to have some financial security, but it also gave value to the other aspects of myself that I looked at through the process. And I don't know, it just made me think, doing that work with you actually made me think, I can do this. It's okay. It's legitimate. It's not silly. I got brought up to believe in financial security, and, that was the most highly valued thing. And I think that's kind of what our society does to people generally. And then there's a lot of people not happy with their jobs out there because there's so much emphasis on the financial security and less value given to what makes you tick as a person, what gets you going. So to have that balance in my life now, um, is it's part of why it's satisfying. I like going back to the law books and reading cases. I still love that. Um, because I'm half time, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do anymore. Generally speaking, I've been able to make the law side work with my interests, so I'm enjoying that a whole lot more, doing that half time. And now I've got this other area of work that is incredibly satisfying. So, even talking about this now and reflecting on where I am now is a pretty cool thing to do. To sort of go, wow, I'm really happy with, you know where I've come with this. I'm really happy with it, and I'm happy that I've still got. I mean, there was a time when I wanted to quit the law altogether because it's like, oh, I can't stand this anymore. But actually, having that as, a half-time job does allow me to mould it into something that suits me a whole lot better.
Oh, excellent.